I'm Senator Mark Udall. I just had the opportunity to be briefed on the situation with the Black Forest fire. I first want to speak to the victims and the families. We're with them. We're going to find every resource we possibly can to support them as they deal with the loss of their homes. We, of course, don't know the details about the 2 lives that are lost, but that makes this tragedy all the more powerful and all the more concerning to us. We also want to acknowledge the firefighters, the volunteers, everybody who's here on site doing everything possible to put this fire out. On that note, secondly, I did meet with the incident commander, Rich Harvey. He assured me that things are moving in the right direction. He assured me that he has all the resources that he needs. The fire is not contained to any great degree, but their confidence is increasing that the areas that are most vulnerable will be protected. Having said that, Mother Nature, of course, has the final say. We all ought to be rooting for cooler temperatures, less wind, and if we're going to get some rain, let's have that rain without lightning, although that combination always is more often than not going to be present. Finally, I want to remind Coloradans, whom I represent, that it looks like we're in for a long fire season. There's some things we can all do. We can recreate responsibly. We can be very aware of the danger of open fires. That's the first thing we ought to do. Second, if you live in the red zones, and many of us do, some studies show that 1 in 4 Coloradans live in the red zones where wildfires can gain the upper hand. Think about clearing the brush. Think about raking pine needles. Move those wood piles away from your homes. A weed whacker and a rake are your best tools. We tend to get focused on chainsaws. I own a chainsaw. I like chainsaws, but the best tools are a weed whacker and a rake. Third, if you live in the red zone, prepare for an evacuation. Put your valuables in one place. It doesn't hurt to take a smartphone or a camera and take pictures of all your valuables. Think about exit routes and take what the county sheriff, what the authorities tell you seriously when they ask you to evacuate. Listen to them. Your lives are at risk. Your property is never as valuable as people's lives. I know I don't have to say that, but I wanted to say that. So that's my report. Be happy to take some questions.
Senator, earlier today someone asked a question, if Colorado had its own air fleet of heavy tankers dropping retardant, that we might not be where we're at today. Can you update us on your efforts and the federal efforts to bring that here to Colorado?
Yeah, I've worked overtime to ensure that we have next generation tankers under contract. The good news was this week that is the case. I've also been working with the Air Force to repurpose C-130s and C-27Js to firefighting status. We're going to get that job done. The legislature did set aside, the legislature passed a law that would allow the state to have its own firefighting fleet. I think that's a discussion worth having, but everything I know about this fire is we have all the assets we need. In fact, Incident Commander Harvey told me that he'd never seen quite a collection of federal private aircraft of all kinds over this fire over the last couple of days. So there's been great coordination. There's been a clear set of guidelines about the airspace and how it's been used. And I would tell you some of that's a result of the after-action review we did last year after the Waldo Canyon fire, which we can all see took place. We will review after this fire ways in which we can do an even better job. But the good news is the lessons we learned last year have enabled us to have people and resources and air assets on site as quickly as possible. I want to particularly acknowledge the state. The state restructured its firefighting capabilities and its firefighting communications under Governor Hickenlooper's leadership. You talk to the sheriff, you talk to the county commissioners, they believe that's worked really, really well. There's been great coordination, the local, county, state, regional, and federal level. That's the real story. One final comment on a state air fleet. State air fleets are expensive, and the state has a lot of demands. Right now, we have the federal resources in place to meet the needs of the incident commander in these fires. But let's continue that discussion.
Senator, continuing with the comments of the fleet, now that you've seen the rapid response from the military helping out with their resources in terms of aerial attacks on the fire, are you still convinced that the fleet is necessary? And are you going to trying to take the example of what CAL FIRE is doing and bring it here to Colorado?
I'm going to focus on the federal assets, the Forest Service contracts with private providers. Those private providers have come up with a next generation set of aircraft. They're adapted to the 21st century, and by all accounts, they're the best tools we can have. I'm also going to work with the military to repurpose their heavy lift aircraft to fight fires, and we have the laws in place, we have the resources now that are being made available to put those aircraft in the mix. If the state wants to proceed to look at its own firefighting fleet, I'm not going to tell them that they shouldn't do so, but right now my focus is on making sure the federal assets are in place, because as you all know, in the West, many of these fires are on federal lands. We have a real responsibility to respond and respond in every way possible.
Senator, what changed between that last year, where there was criticism of a slow federal response, and this year, where everyone's been saying, wow, the federal response has been amazing and quick? What changed?
Here are a couple things that changed. We got everybody together under my leadership, if I can be modest. After the fire last year, we sat down with the military, the Forest Service, the county, did an after-action review. Out of that after-action review came memorandums of understanding, which allowed us to then respond much more quickly to this fire. There are still a couple of questions that have to be answered. One of them is that we can bring military assets to bear, but there is a law under Title 10. That's the title that provides for how the military operates on domestic soil, that says if you have private contractors in place, you first have to employ them in fighting fires. It's a way in which to honor and respect the private sector, which has built up assets and is ready to fight these fires. But all in all, the MOU provided for some more clarity on that front. It provided for a quicker set of communications, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. I know we'll learn some more lessons after this fire, but right now my focus is getting this out, taking care of the families, and making sure the firefighters and all the volunteers here are supported, they're housed, they're fed as they undertake this dangerous work, hot work, to get this fire out completely.
Senator, what did the state have to do to get the Type 1 team here, and how much is that costing?
I don't have the numbers at my fingertips as to what it's costing. I'm happy to get those to you, but we'll make sure those costs are covered. FEMA is in place. We called on FEMA immediately to bring those resources to bear. The governor declared a disaster here as quickly as he could, so that brought additional resources. What was the rest of your question?
And how much? What did it take to get the Type 1 team here?
It didn't take a long time, that's for sure. That Type 1 team was here very quickly. As you know, there was a local response. The local response was not adequate. The locals fire district called on the county. The county quickly assessed that they couldn't handle the fire. Then the county called in the state. This is all in a matter of hours. The state then called in the incident command structure and the incident command personnel. If it's not a textbook case of responding, it certainly has a lot to recommend it as a way to quickly go into action.
Senator, do you think there will be federal aid made available for these victims?
There generally is federal aid made available. It's one of the missions I'll be on. I'll work with Senator Bennett. I'll work with the governor, work with our delegation. I'll work with Congressman Lamborn to get that federal aid in place. One of the things I will do is I'll go right to work to get the same kind of resources we now have to reclaim the lands, looking back behind everybody at the Waldo Canyon fire. We're going to get those resources, if I have anything to say about it, in here sooner and quicker than it took to get those resources here. As you all know, there was some real resistance on the part of states and their delegations to do this. It doesn't make sense to me. The natural disaster that's in our state will visit your state in the near future. It's one of the reasons that we're the United States of America. We're all in this together. But we'll get those resources, I have no doubt.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Senator.
All right.
If we can do some one-on-one now.
All right, yeah, I'm happy to do one-on-ones,
Do you want to come over here?
or if you all have better things to do, you won't hurt my feelings.